You look around your team and everyone's nodding. No one is disagreeing with you. Great, we're all on the same page. The smartest people haven't actually agreed with you. They've just given up trying to change your mind. By being the smartest person in the room, you're building a culture of yes men and women. And now, when something happens, you're going to be the last person to find out. You've become the hidden killer of initiative, ownership, and creativity. Best of all, you don't even know it. One day while in my corporate job, my boss told me that I needed to show more leadership skills. I made a lot of mistakes in this couple of months because I didn't know what I was doing, and my clumsiness made life difficult for my colleagues. One mistake was trying to enforce my own expertise into the interactions with my colleagues, ignoring that they too have their own experiences. After a lot of painful mistakes, I started to take this whole leadership thing seriously. You see, when you're an individual contributor, you're just looking after yourself. You can be the best at what you do, be it an engineer, accountant, marketer, IT professional, etc. Then they put you in charge of a team, and that's where the whole trouble begins. Your technical expertise has little to nothing to do with managing and leading others. Also, it doesn't help that your team members may actually be better than you are in their area of work. That might cause you to think, if I'm not the smartest person here, why am I the boss? This is where the imposter syndrome kicks in, because you were the best in your previous area of work as an individual contributor. What worked back then should work the same way now that you're in charge, right? So, we start overcompensating, talking the most during the team meeting, going through the details to find mistakes, to prove our value to our team, to show we are relevant to them, that we are the best, and that's why we are in charge. You know what that does? It builds up frustration because your team knows what they are doing. That's what they are paid to do. And look, your team might not necessarily know more about leadership than you. They will see that your way of leading and motivating them is just not working. When in fact, you're insecure, you don't trust yourself to lead because you don't know what you're doing. And that insecurity is undermining your leadership and fueling that imposter syndrome. The transition from one level to the next in any organization is always tough. When you go from individual contributor to team leader, you have to learn to let go of your own technical expertise, and at the same time learn to manage, lead, and affect change in your team through your own efforts. And when you go from team leader to head of department, you have to learn to manage, lead, and affect change through your team leaders, trusting that they'll get it right. I'm telling you this because in working with over 1,100 team leaders and heads of departments, many suffer from this imposter syndrome at both levels. It's using different tools at different stages of your leadership journey. So I want to share with you the fifth segment of an interview that I had with Wilfred Fu, the then CEO of Cycle & Carriage. I pulled 4 key observations that will change the way you look at your own leadership so you can lead others who are smarter than you without feeling like an imposter and without losing your authority and influence.
Yeah. So let's zoom in a little bit more on you then, Right at that time, you got your team and you're doing a lot of big things, you're trying to turn things around. Was there ever a time where you asked yourself like, hey, am I leading in a way that is authentic, that is real, that is aligned with who I am? Or was it more of a case of, well, look, this is what the theories told me, this is what I've been sent for this leadership course, and this is what they say, so I'm just going to do it.
If a company ever sends you for a leadership course, you are extremely blessed. Okay, most people most of the time attends these courses and then they go back and they forget everything.
Yes.
They don't do anything about nothing.
That's right.
That was something that I always wanted to refute as a practice. When I'm sent for a course, I firstly want to understand the kind of fundamental building blocks of what is lacking in my knowledge. But when I go back, I always try to apply, you see. So the application was what taught me most about business, about leadership, etc., etc.
For most of us, when we want to get better at our own leadership, we go to HR or our boss, get approval to attend a leadership training program. We go through the leadership frameworks, models, techniques, and at the end, receive a certificate of completion. Okay, we're a leader now. That's not how it works. Here's the problem. We attended some training, felt inspired, then go back to the office the next workday, and the workplace is still a mess. Conflict still happening, and all the leadership theory that you learn feels like it's not applicable to your situation. Wilford was very blunt about this, and you can see me agreeing with him on this. You see, leadership is a science. You have to decode, identify, and understand the human behaviors, emotions, and thinking of people you lead. You have to know how people are likely to behave in certain leadership situations. Leadership is also mostly an art. At the end of the day, you must apply a lot. You can know the what and why of human behavior. That's the science. But at the end of the day, you must apply. That's the art. You must know what's the gap in your leadership so you can go get the right frameworks, models, and concepts and practice until you close that gap. When you're managing and leading smart people, it's your handling of their emotions, thoughts, and behaviors that matter the most. Make them feel capable. Make yourself helpful by empowering them to feel capable. Then you get performance from your team. The right frameworks, models, and concepts, along with the appropriate experiences, have to be part of your leadership tool belt. Not some random leadership theory, model, or framework. But you know, empowering your team to feel capable so they can actually perform is not as straightforward as it sounds. Because you have to get the balance right between being helpful to your team and ensuring you still get the right level of performance from them. Before we go into the next point, if you're finding this content helpful and you want to see more videos on how to make leadership simple, do me a quick favor and hit the like button. It really helps the channel reach more leaders who are struggling with these same issues. Thank you very much.
So in leading a young and junior team, I applied very basic things.
Yeah.
Okay. At first, I thought I knew everything because I was rather successful at a young age in being able to understand finance.
Yeah, that's right.
But only to realize that everybody brings something else to the picture, and some of my team members could bring things like relationship, network, to resolve issues that are facing us at that moment where I did not have.
Okay.
And that helped me a lot as well. So it is through that interaction and willingness to listen that I kind of learned that a team really does deliver much more than what you can.
There was a leader I interviewed for my book, First Time Leadership, John. Now, John shared with me an experience where he thought as a new team leader, he had to be the font of all knowledge and ideas. He did that for the first 6 months of his leadership journey, being super helpful to his team by coming up with all the ideas and solutions to every challenge they came across, until one incident caused him to have a rethink. It was a presentation that a team member did in front of some senior leaders in his company. During the questions and answer segment, some questions were asked of her by the senior leaders. Instead of answering them directly, she kept deferring towards John for the answers. Even though he told his team member that the presentation was an opportunity to highlight her capabilities to those senior leaders, he ended up answering many of the questions. He was initially confused by the incident and went to speak with a mentor about it. One of the biggest psychological challenges for any leader is to fight against the need to be the smartest person in the room. You see, as an individual contributor, your value comes from being a technical expert. So when the team faces challenges, what do you naturally do? Continue to be the technical expert, of course. After all, you are trying to be helpful. How else should things be any different? When you are leading your team and you try to be the best expert, that means you're competing with them. You have lowered your own status as their team leader and gone back to be a team member amongst them. You're doing this because you feel comfortable in that area and you don't know any better. Being a leader has made you uncertain, and so you chase their validation. John didn't realize how damaging his behaviors were to his leadership. By being the font of all knowledge and answers, his team eventually stopped offering ideas because they know he'll just override them. They stopped taking initiative to think for themselves because they thought John will just change it anyway, so why bother? He ended up with a team of order takers rather than problem solvers and became the killer of their initiative, ownership, and creativity. And he found out too late at the presentation in front of the senior leaders. He had planned to sit back and enjoy the presentation and had no intention of being further involved in it. But he found out too late what he had done to his team. Wilfred, just like John, shared a very personal reflection here. The thing here is to have humility, not just intellectually, but also as a whole person. This desire to be better than the team in their technical area smells of personal insecurities that stems from not knowing how to be a leader. After speaking with his mentor and further reflecting on a path to move forward, John told his team during their next team meeting that he could have led them better. He asked the team for a complete reset in their relationship and made real effort to change the way he led. The results was that the initiative, ownership, and creative energy of his team came back after a few months. So here's what you have to do. Accept that you're still learning as a leader, even though you're expected to lead your best every day. You don't need to have all the answers and ideas. Help them a leader if they're stuck. But be mindful not to completely remove the work pressure. Don't create a situation where the team becomes totally dependent on you. A little work pressure can help the team grow and compel them to use their collective networks, experiences, and insights to get things done. Mind you, if you're a head of department watching this, the same applies when you work with your team leaders. They know what has to be done to execute with their own teams. Your job is to listen, find a way forward together, enable them with resources, and empower them to do their best work. When you do these things with consistency over a period of time, they will respect you more. That's what leaders do. So, you're listening more and you're letting them lead the execution. But as a leader, you're still responsible for the results. How do you actually measure if things are going well without micromanaging the details?
So back to your question, theory resides in the mind
Yes.
of you. If you bring it to bear yourself, it might not work because it is a theory.
Yes.
But if you bring a group of people with different actions that you put into play, it might result in that theory manifesting itself.
Yeah.
So the theory is mostly a lagging indicator of success,
Yes.
proven in business schools over decades, you see,
Yes,
a
that's right.
lagging indicator. The interesting part is the leading indicator. What are all the actions that you take that help manifest in that lagging result, right?
Yes.
And that takes people.
When you're part of the management structure, you have to look at your numbers to gauge your team's performance. These might be sales reports, project completion rates, the monthly KPIs, etc. Looking at numbers is an inevitable part of your job as a leader. These are the lagging indicators because we only get the results after some time has passed. Many managers look at these lagging indicators, and if the numbers look okay, then implicitly that means their people management skills are okay. But let me ask you this question. If management is keeping things steady and leadership is navigating the challenges on the journey, then what tells you that your leadership is on track? You see, what Wilfred is implying here is this. Silence from your best people is a lagging indicator of a dying culture. By the time your numbers start dropping, it's really too late. It means your best people have disengaged a long time ago. A team that doesn't feel cohesive, come up with better ideas, or challenge the status quo is one that's about to fail, even if the current report looks green. The damage is done, and you need to reverse things quickly. The behaviors of your people in the way they interact, share information, and the mood of the team in the day-to-day those are your leading indicators because it's feedback that you get right now on the health of your team and department. If you want to improve your leadership, you have to be the cause of the effect you want to see in your team. You want the effect of more conversations in your meetings, then be the cause of it by asking each person for their opinions on the matter. You want the effect of more employee engagement and interaction within your team, then engage your team through one-to-one conversations, meals, vision, direction, individual specific performance standards. You want the effect of a feedback culture, then make sure you cause it by being open to feedback from your team and actually taking action on them. When you pay more attention and work on the leading indicators of your team's behaviors right now, then the lagging indicators of your team's performance becomes a byproduct of your efforts. For any department head watching this, the same applies when you have multiple teams. And if you want more specifics on how to apply this same concept at the department level, just leave a comment below. Managing behaviors and feelings can feel a bit soft, especially in the midst of all the hard data that is available in an organization. In fact, we know there's a lot of data flying around. That means complexity exists in the workplace. What do you do when you have to navigate organization complexity in order for your team to succeed? When every team, department, division, or business unit has their own objectives to achieve, and hopefully all these objectives don't clash with others in the same organization. We're trying to help 1,000 leaders simplify their lives by focusing on what actually matters. If you want to be part of that mission, please subscribe to the channel and help us grow this community. Thank you very much.
Yes, yeah. And you have a rather, I mean, before we move on to you taking the next step up in the organization, you have a rather philosophical kind of approach towards leadership. Yeah. Did that ever? I mean, did that viewpoint ever come into play?
Yeah, the reality is I think I learned best whilst understanding the world through stories. And you can call it philosophy or framework. To me, it's just examples shared with me by people who are older and more experienced than me. I grew up in an environment where the books that were given to me by my father were 荀子, Art of War, or Machiavelli, and that kind of allowed me as a young boy to understand that the world was much more complex than what I think it looks like or smells like. And that complexity resides in people's minds. So the philosophy or the framework is about some sort of guiding frame to help me make a method to dealing with the madness out there.
Yes.
If I don't have that method, it is very hard to interpret and weave your way through the problems because the problems are multifaceted and coming from all directions.
Correct.
So the philosophy is important to me because it stems from who I am. And that's my own values, right?
Yes, yeah.
Every organization has some degree of messiness. Every team, department, division, or business unit has their own objectives to achieve. Now, usually these objectives are aligned towards the organization vision. Team objectives are aligned to department objectives are aligned to the division of business unit. The respective division of business units all line up to connect to that of the organization. On paper at least. You don't usually have insights or know what are the objectives of the teams or departments next to yours. And these objectives can often drive certain behaviors of those who need to achieve them. Behaviors that may be productive for them and not so for you. Here's an example. I had a team leader once in my class. One of her responsibilities was to ensure a minimum profitability level for every business-to-business sale that her company did. Where sales are above a minimum profit threshold, she approves the sale to go through. She had a colleague who was in charge of sales. His job was to sell and to achieve revenue targets regardless of profitability. During the class, she informed that she had rejected sales from her colleague because it didn't reach the minimum profitability threshold. This is an example where one person has a key objective of achieving revenue but not profitability, while another has to monitor profitability. In theory, they should be working closely together. In reality, it's a bit messy. When you're part of the management structure, you have your objectives to achieve. You don't know what the other team has to do. Even if you ask, they'll probably not tell you. After all, what business is it of yours? But here's the thing. You need to be able to navigate your team through this minefield of sometimes competing objectives. Understand the challenges that others have, and then line up their objectives with yours. Where there is common interest, there's room to talk. You need to develop relationships with other leaders, preferably from other teams and departments whom your own team or department work regularly with. So that when you need a favor, they're willing to extend a helping hand. After all, they have experiences, expertise, and networks that you don't, and vice versa. A part of the usefulness of those relationships with your peer leaders is when your team members face obstacles in cross-functional projects with other teams, and you have to step in to have an honest conversation about resolving them with the relevant team leads. Those relationships also extend to your boss and other senior leaders, so you can get more insights into organizational strategy and direction. You can have a better understanding into why those strategies have to be executed or why a particular direction must be taken. Because even if you can't really influence them, your team or department can understand why, and that makes execution a little easier. When your team sees that you're able to clear the path for them, or at least make things a little easier for them, in some way, they'll start giving you their best ideas because they know those ideas actually have a chance of succeeding. This is where Wilfred's mention of Machiavelli and Sun Tzu is so important. He's not talking about being a bad person. He's talking about being a strategic leader who is not naive. Organization complexity exists because of different objectives that may not be fully aligned. Your job as the leader is to be able to navigate your team or department through that complexity. Someone who can use their position to navigate the system. This is what Wilfred did in the earlier fourth segment of this interview when he aligned with the wider sales force of his then organization to help with his product sales. Here's what we covered today. Observation 1. Leadership is mostly art. Leadership means dealing with human behavior. You can learn about it in a classroom, and in the end, you have to apply it in real life on people. Observation 2. Don't be the hidden killer. Don't kill your team's initiative, ownership, and creativity just because you need to be the smartest person in the room. Empower them to use their experiences, expertise, and insights. Observation 3. Cause the effects you want to see. Be aware of the leading indicators or the behaviors of your people, the way they interact, share information, and the mood of the team. Lead in a way that causes the desired behaviors you want to see in your team. Observation 4. Navigate organization complexity. Be a strategist to guide your team through the messiness of sometimes not fully aligned objectives in the organization. As a leader, you don't need to have all the answers and ideas. Don't let your own insecurities and your imposter syndrome get in the way. This requires you to put your ego aside and realize that your value as a leader isn't in what you do as in your technical knowledge, but in how you empower others. There'll be those who are better than you in some aspect of the team's work. Find out what you can do to help so they can do their best work. That is one part of leadership. It sounds simple, but as we always say here, leadership is simple but not easy. By the way, only some leadership topics make it into videos. If you're tired of guessing your way through difficult leadership topics, I invite you to join our Leadership Made Simple newsletter. Every week, I share practical answers to real-world leadership topics. The link is in the description below where you can sign up. Before you go, I have a question for you. Think of your last team meeting. Did you talk the most? And if it was, what What was one thing you could do next time to make sure your smartest people feel safe enough to come up with alternative ideas? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I really want to hear about the resistance you have faced, either from your own ego or from your organization when you try to open up that conversation. What we talked about today is ultimately for you to lead in a way that keeps motivating your team. If you want to know what leaders get wrong about motivation, watch this video here.